Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of the iWorkinSport live interview. Today we start our 5th season. This is the show where we talk to accomplished sport business professionals who come here to share their knowledge, their experience, tips and advice in order to help you succeed in your career. If you're just meeting, my name is João Frigerio. I'm the founder of iWorkinSport. And first of all, I want to say thank you for being here with us today. Is this your first time joining, or are you coming back? Let me know in the comments. That would be great. And as always, if you can let us know where you're watching from, that would be great as well. Let me know in the comments. Oh, I'm going to have to fix that in a minute. Anyway, if you're watching the replay, also leave a comment. We'll check all of them. If you don't know iWorkinSport, we're a platform to help you accelerate your career in sport. If you want to work in sport, or if you already work in sport, we're here to help you either way. We organize events which connect you with recruiters in case you're looking for a job, or with sports management academic programs if you're interested in investing in education. Those programs can be a very effective way to enter the industry. Well, stay tuned. Make sure you follow us on LinkedIn, on YouTube, because we'll have more news about the event next week. Right, so now let me introduce you my guest. Well, did you know that the UEFA Champions League is celebrating its 30th anniversary this year? The first edition was in 1992-93 season. So I thought it would be very fitting to kick off our new season of live interviews with one of the masterminds behind the biggest and best club competition in the world. Right, so today our guest is Craig Thompson, one of the most successful sport business executives of the last 40 years or so, or since we can say that sport started to turn into a business. Right, so he's of course known for being one of the creators of the Champions League, but believe you me, he has done much more than that, and he's still doing right. So he's still going strong, and we will talk about that. Now, of course, there will be also some tips and advice to help you in your career. So let's get to the chase. Let me invite Craig to join me. Let me find him. Where is he? Oh, well, right after this. Hello, Craig. Nice to see you. Thank you for being here today.
Hello, João. Thank you very much.
Great. So, Craig, first heard of team marketing. Heard of you in 2004, right, through a friend called Roger Ludwig. We were doing the FIFA Master together, and since then I heard, of you, of your name, what you were doing with team. And one of the reasons I love this show, I love doing this, is that gives me the opportunity to meet some people that I always wanted to have a chat with. So it's really great to have you here. Let's start maybe with a summary of your career. If you can maybe tell people a bit, what you did, maybe what you studied, give us a background, and then we'll talk a little more about some details. Is that okay?
Sure. I studied anthropology, which didn't really prepare me for business, but it did prepare me well for working across a lot of different cultures. And over my years in sport, I've been working now in over 65 countries, across the world. It's been quite an amazing adventure. I'm American, grew up here in near Los Angeles, California, went to Europe in 1986 and started with the Volleyball Federation, where I was the technical director. I'm a volleyball professional, and quickly realized I wanted to jump into the business of sport rather than the administration of sport, and was lucky enough to find a job with ISL Marketing, which was one of the leading sports agencies in the world at the time, that had the Olympic Games, the World Cup, the European Championships, and so on. Spent 4 years there really learning the business of sports marketing. Went from there to team marketing, which we started in 1991, to become another sports marketing agency. It was just at the time when UEFA was getting some pressure about the organization of the European Champions Club Cup, and they wanted to explore new alternative formats for that, and also to increase the commercial return to the clubs. And we were there at the right time. We had a previous relationship with UEFA. We were able to land that contract with them and started the Champions League in 1992, which is, as you said, 30 years ago. It's amazing. And then after 11 years, I moved with my family to the south of France. Had been living in Lucerne, Switzerland up till then. We started a Champions Hockey League, which was similar to the concept of the Champions League, where the winning teams from each nation play against each other. So that was Russia, Sweden, Finland, Germany, Switzerland, and so on. Excuse me, that launched in 2008. And after that was launched, I was invited to come and run the America's Cup in San Francisco. It had been in Valencia. We moved it back to San Francisco. So I came back with my family to America in 2010 and ran the America's Cup. Subsequently, which was an amazing experience, something I'd never done before. And subsequently started a consulting business, and now am spending most of my time in global football commercial consulting, and also in sport tech investments with our company Mindspring Capital. I think you're on mute.
Right. Sorry. Thank you. I've been doing that for a few seasons now. Always, every now and then that happens. Anyway, no, sorry. Thank you for the that summary. Listen, I was thinking, I mean, you mentioned, of course, the Champions Hockey League. That was something that I followed as well, when I was at working at SportCal at the time. And then, of course, the America's Cup. And now you have a new business, Mindspring. We will talk about it. I mean, you've done so much. And it was funny. I was, of course, doing some reading about you, and then realized that you had done all that. However, I always think that there is, I came with a comparison to my head, because you do have a big hit. And then I was thinking of the Rolling Stones, right? That did so much, and but they always have to play Satisfaction. So my question is can success be a curse in a way? Does it bother you to kind of remain associated to the Champions League? Because when I was preparing to this, I say I want to talk about new things, right? But I can't avoid talking about the Champions League. So I was wondering if how is that when you have such a big hit in your career, and of course you do many other great things as well.
Look, being involved with a project like that is the best thing that could ever happen to someone that loves working in sports. That will stay with me the rest of my life. I think it's a good thing that when I talk to people and they know that that's my background, they expect a lot from me, and that keeps the pressure on me to keep learning and growing and delivering along those lines, and that's good for me, and it's good for the people I work with. So That's my attitude about it.
No, that's great. So let us, before we move on, let's talk a little about that, because I'm very interested in the process of a career, right? You were, how long have you been working in sport when we went and participate in the creation of team and the Champions League? How long have
I've
you been doing
been
that?
Well, I've been an athlete in sports all my life, but really in the business of sport started at ISL Marketing in 1986. 1988, and we then started team marketing and basically actually got underway in 1992. So about 4 years.
That
But
was quite.
I had a really good preparation with ISL because they were on top of the world of sport, and it was a great place to be. And
Yes, no, definitely. We did have Michael Payne participating here and told us a little about the work that they did at ISL, Terrence Burns as well, and definitely it was a huge agency at the time. But how was it then? I mean, walk us through a bit of the creation of the Champions League and of team marketing. So you're still young in your profession. How all that came about? How was that created, and how was your participation in it?
look, it's a crazy story, and people don't realize at the time UEFA was rather small. They were based in Bern, Switzerland. Now they're in Lausanne, in Nyon. UEFA had no resources. I mean, they were the governing body of European football. European football was a lot smaller then, and when it came time to launching the Champions League, we had to provide guaranteed revenue for the clubs to participate, because in the previous competition they were able to sell sponsorship and television rights themselves and receive that revenue, including the ticketing. But with Champions League, we centralized all the rights into Team and UEFA. And in order to do that, we had to provide that guaranteed amount of money that they had been making. So we Team Marketing had to raise about $200 million, equivalent, it was Swiss francs, but $200 million, in order to provide that prize money. So it was every club got a certain amount of money for qualifying, and then for every point they got, for every victory in the competition, they got additional money, and then if they made it to the semifinals, and so on. So the revenue, the reason that the Champions League was able to be created was because we were able to raise that money. And
How, how
so
did you do that? Was traditional sponsors?
it was high net worth individuals in Germany where we had very good connections. Um, and we were fortunate enough to be able to do that in a relatively short period of time, because from the time we started the Champions League we got the contract in 1992, February of 92. We actually had our first matches in November. And that's another thing that people don't realize. So eight months after getting the contract, we launched the Champions League with its music and its brand and its pageantry and um, all that involved.
So it was
It was a
exactly
busy
30 years
time.
ago that you signed a contract and created the Champions League then.
It's 30 years right now. Yep.
That's great. Um, and Craig, we recently had this episode of some clubs trying to create the Super League. And I was wondering if it was possible to draw a parallel uh, with what happened in 1992. Is it possible to compare the two projects? Of course, one was very successful and the other one wasn't. But what would be your thoughts on it?
Well, the basis of all of that, Zhao, is that clubs are always in need of more revenue. That's how they buy the better players. That's how they run their operations. That's how they renovate their stadiums. Even in the days of the Champions League, that was the driving force behind UEFA creating it together with us, was the need of clubs to get a bigger return, and that has just grown over the years. So as we all know, in the Champions League, you've got Manchester United and Bayern Munich and Real Madrid, Juventus. You've got those teams in the Champions League every year. So what happens? They increase their budget by 25 to 50% over what it is just playing in their own league. And that additional budget they use to buy players and to be an even better team. But when they're in the Champions League and they have that budget all the time, they get dependent on it. And when they then don't qualify for the Champions League for some reason, they have to downsize. They have to let people go. They have to sometimes let players go. It's a very traumatic experience. So all those big clubs, they want to be big all the time. They always want to be in this Champions League so they can count on that revenue. And therefore, the idea of a super league. So you can count on your revenue. But this super league concept, qualification for the Champions League means that any team in Europe, from the third, fifth division in any country, if you work your way up to the first division and you win your league, or even in the top leagues or in the top four, you can qualify for the Champions League. That's a beautiful thing in sport. It gives everybody a chance. It's a level playing field. It's not easy, but when you change that, when clubs say, no, we want to be in all the time, you ruin that. You ruin that entire pyramid of sport in Europe, which is, like I said, a beautiful thing. In America, we don't have that. The leagues are closed, and you're at the bottom of the league, and you would get relegated in Europe. In America, that lousy team stays in the league, and they keep playing, and it's not good competitively. So the Super League was trying to change all that. And one of my favorite days in my life was, they didn't understand the culture of European. These were Americans, Russians, and basically the Arab Gulf countries that were working together to create the Super League. That was where the money was coming from. And they don't understand the culture of football in Europe. And the day that Manchester United fans invaded the stadium to protest the Super League was one of the great days of my life. I mean, that is football. That's what people care about. Everybody wants to have a chance.
Definitely, it was funny how they thought of simply importing the American model, and then didn't think of the fans. They didn't realize how the fans would react. Craig, just before I move on to other questions, I want to tell you that unfortunately I can't see the people commenting here, but there's some people watching on LinkedIn saying hi from Amanda from Paris, Olumide in London. There is Regina saying hi from Brazil. There is Jesus in Rennes, France, Taruka in India. So there's people watching us from all over. So please, if there's more people there watching us, just let us know where you're watching from. That's great to know. Now, Craig, I do this very much focusing in career, right? That's what iWorkinSport is about. So I was wondering, what were the skills? I don't know if you ever made that self-reflection, but if you were to do it, what were the skills that allowed you to be successful in your career since when you started, back then at a young age, creating something that big and continuing where you are now? And I don't know if that's the same kind of skills that you look for when you're hiring someone, or you actually would go for something complementary. But let's talk about you.
Well, from my experience in hiring hundreds of people in my career, there's three things that I think really matter. And that is, okay, you want someone that has intelligence, can think clearly and develop a strategy. You want somebody that is good with people. Sports is a people business. We're always working with people, no matter what we do. And number three is the ability to handle stress. And I see, young people all the time, coming into sport, and you go to organize a football match or any other sporting event, And there's a lot of stress. There's a lot of things happening at the same time, including many unexpected things. And it's the ability to deal with that, to figure out, okay, I have to do this right now. I got to communicate to these other people that I can't do that right now. And I need to communicate to these other people that they need to help me and do this part for me. And it's being able to sort through a stressful situation and long hours. But when you're in an environment that you love, I love sport. Nothing gives me greater pleasure than being in a stadium full of people, waiting to see their favorite teams play. And it makes it all worthwhile. So those are for me, the main. It's not education. I wouldn't say education. I would say those other factors are more important.
Right. And in terms of when people come to you and ask you for advice, of specifically how to start, so you talk maybe more broadly about the skills. Is there a particular advice that you give them?
Well, speaking of education, which I don't think is the most important thing, but there's universities now all over the world that are offering sports marketing courses, and I think if you're interested in sport, that's going to be a valuable, one way to find out if you really like it or not, and number two, to learn more about it. But the getting a job in sports is really difficult. It's the same in other industries, but they want to hire people with experience. What have you done before? And a lot of employers don't even want to talk to you unless you have experience. So getting that foot in the door, which means in today's world, it's about becoming an intern, and it's working for little money or no money, depending on your circumstances. But I would strongly recommend finding an internship in any aspect of sport, because once you've been able to say, I worked in this company on that event, in this league, for this team, it changes everything. Now you're part of the team. You're part of the industry, and it's no matter what you're doing. If it's it doesn't matter the accreditation system or monitoring the access points in the stadium or dealing with media or sponsorship issues. All of those things are part of sport, and wherever you have experience, you have to learn about other things in sport as well. And that's always, I think, the most critical issue.
Right. And in sport as well, there's a curious thing. Well, not curious. It's a particular thing in sport that there's the volunteers as well. It's another way to, I suppose, to get in as well, right? You have internships, but I presume that participating in events as a volunteer, it's a similar way to do it and could work as well.
Sure. Internship is better than a volunteer because a volunteer is a temporary, thing, usually around one event. Doesn't mean it can't be a longer term, but volunteering for the Olympic Games and being part of the staff is another great way to learn about sports, and that's going to do really well with an employer when you say I worked in the Olympic Games for 3 weeks. So they both work.
Great. And Craig, I don't want to assume, right? So when you participate in something so big as the Champions League, and at that age, one might think that was indeed the greatest maybe challenge that you faced in your career. But was it, or if I were to ask you, what then was a big challenge or a great challenge that you faced, and challenge in a sense more like a difficulty that you have to overcome? I heard one of your interviews mentioning a difficult situation at the very start of your career at FIBA, but maybe there are others too.
Every life and industry and career has its difficulties, and I think sports. I think it tests you. I think it kind of you kind of discover what you're made of, I was talking about that stress a little earlier. And, there's people that can handle stress more naturally because it's just part of their nature. And there's other people that really don't like stress. And I would say people that don't like stress really shouldn't try to find a career in events. There's other parts of sports marketing where the stress is much lower, but in the event side, and you have to learn by experience and by failing, by making the wrong decision, and you just hope that whatever you do wrong, it's not seen on the camera by the millions and millions of fans that are, in the first game of the Champions League in Glasgow in 1992, Glasgow Rangers playing Olympique Marseille. We had the center circle that we had developed, which was our big Champions League Starball brand, and it still is a cornerstone of the branding. And it was very windy, and so we always laid it out on the pitch, and it kind of held it down with some anchors, and then these ball boys and girls would come out and they would shake the flag and the banner, and to give it some energy. And it was so windy that some of the kids started getting lifted off the ground, and it became really dangerous. And we had to go out there on the pitch and get them off of there quickly, while the players are in the lineup and the music is playing. And but I could give you 500 stories like that of things that happen during and there's people that can cope with that kind of emergency and get it done and make the best of it, and other people that can't. And I think I'm one of those people that learned to deal with those kind of things. But there's no substitute for good organization, and that's what Champions League became known for. We created a whole system of preparation for the matches. So we went to a match with a checklist of every single thing: the pitch, the press, the hospitality, the access, accreditation, safety and security. Every single thing that went into creating a match was on our checklist. And we had meetings with all the different groups, and every meeting we had an agenda for that meeting. And so by the time we got to the time of the match, everything that has to do with that match was covered and arranged and ready to go. Most importantly, after the match, we had a debrief, which everybody hated the debrief because you just had the match the night before. We had a debrief at 8 a.m. the following day, and the club people had to come there along with media sponsors and other people. And we talked about what went well, but what didn't go well. And when we talked about what didn't go well, we made a list of those points with the person that was responsible. We sent a follow-up email back to the club. These are the things we have to address for next time. And then before that next match, our staff was sending emails and making sure that those things were being addressed. And match by match by match, you get the Champions League, okay, which is probably the best run league in the world. I keep hearing that.
Yeah.
I think it was, and I think the proof of that was that the sponsors that we started with in 1992 lasted. Some of them are still there 30 years later, which is kind of unheard of in sports, like MasterCard. But others like Ford and Heineken is still there as well. Sony, Adidas, these sponsors keep renewing. Why did they keep renewing?
Yeah. Great product. Listen, I want to talk about your current projects. Before we do that, let me just say, shout outs to some people that are saying hi here. So we have Jack Marley from Bath in England. Sanika says hi as well.
We have a young viewer.
Yeah, well, Tonatio Barreto, loved your insights. We have Otacílio in Brazil. There's a few more people here in watching on LinkedIn. Let me just say, Nuno Leitão is in Portugal. Marilia in Kiev, Ukraine. I hope you're well. Miguel also in Portugal, and Esther in the UK. And there is Erica here telling people, please don't forget to like the video. And so thank you for that. By the way, Erica, as you could see, is Frigerio. It's my wife. I want to say I love you because today I'm celebrating my third anniversary, Craig. So
all right.
You're participating in a very special day to me. So
I hope she's still with you after this interruption.
No, she will. I'm sure she loves it. Anyway, let's talk about your current projects. So what's Mindspring and Mindspring Capital? Maybe tell us a little about that.
So I'm carrying on my work that I learned at Champions League with global football. I go in and I went to Chile, where a big marketing agency had the rights, and they didn't want to handle the sponsorship. I set up a sponsorship program for them, for the Chilean men's national team, which then was going into the qualification for the World Cup, which they're in the process right now. We brought 7 sponsors on board for $100 million for that 4-year qualification period. I'm working in Kazakhstan right now, which has taken me to a new frontier, which is not the warmest country I've ever been in, coming from California.
Right.
But there we're taking the rights of the federation and the league, and we're putting them into a new commercial company that's going to help them commercialize and make more money for football in Kazakhstan. So things like that. And then these days, Mindspring Capital, which is we have realized the importance of technology in sport that has been going on for 20 years or longer, but it's just been growing and growing and growing and having a bigger and bigger impact on sport in so many ways. One of the most important ways is that it's enabling sports organizations to make more money. And so I've been a witness to this evolution, and I decided to start participating by actually setting up a company that invests in sport technology. And this is things like social media engagement, it's video technology, betting technology, fan data. And we have 9 investments now around the world in sport tech. And then, we work with these companies to help them understand. A lot of these technology companies don't have that much knowledge about the business of sport. So we're a very valuable investor for them, that we can help them understand that and apply their technology in the right way, but also understanding. In America, you talk about global football and people say, well, okay, I understand, I know what it is, but I have no idea how to connect with that. And in Europe, who knows about American collegiate sports or minor league baseball, which are huge, grassroots sports in America, which are huge industries. So we're very global, and we connect everybody together. And we see that we're in the right space at the right time. Technology is growing so rapidly right now. So that's one of my major focuses.
How many are you? Are those 2 separate companies, or they work pretty much together?
2 separate companies. There's on the technology side, there's 8 of us around the world, and on the sports side, I've got about 10 people on the Kazakhstan project, and then I'm also very active in a new sport called padel.
Yeah.
It's popular in Brazil, João.
In Spain, it's very popular.
Spain, it's the most popular. We're launching a project right now with the International Tennis Federation, and there I have about another eight people involved in that project. So small but focused.
Right. And what's a normal day like for you?
Living in California means I go to bed early and get up early, because the rest of the world is ahead of us, meaning Europe and Asia. So I start my day I get up at 5:30, start my calls at 6 in the morning, and usually have continuous calls until 11 or 12 o'clock in the afternoon. In the afternoon, I work on my projects, send my emails, do my proposals, write, produce decks, and so on. But I get to travel a lot. I love traveling. And like I said, I've worked in over 65 countries. I go to Europe, 3 or 4 times a year. I have friends everywhere now because of all the years I've been in the business. And so I'm not like a tourist when I get somewhere, which is not a bad thing either. But having friends, being able to go to dinner, play sports together when I'm traveling is really, really a nice experience.
And well, I imagine that the pandemic has impacted a lot your traveling lately. But what about the business? Do you have like investments or that actually thrive in that type of environment? Because there was a lot of technology companies that were doing really well, not only because of that, but that pushed or accelerated their business. How did that go for you?
Really well. I'm sorry to say. I mean, sports took a huge hit, and still is, although it's getting better. But witness the Olympic Games in Beijing right now with very few spectators. But that loss of spectators caused a huge loss of income. And not only that, broadcasters and sponsors were suffering from COVID effects as well. Revenues were down very far in that period. So what became very important was new ways. Your fans weren't in the stadium, so how are you going to reach them? And so all these new ways of fan engagement started being developed. A lot to do with video, a lot to do with betting because people were staying at home watching matches. So these industries just flourished. So this technology, hundreds and hundreds of new technology companies were developed, and the ones that could deliver new revenues to the rights holders were very, very valuable during that time period. So those are the kind of companies that we invested in that have been able to make a difference, for the rights holders.
Right. Thanks for that. Listen, I just want to say here that Melissa here, Diaz, she really agrees with you. Managing stress is key. I want to tell people that are watching us at home, thanks for the comments. Many people congratulating me and Erica for that, but I won't post those. But if you do have questions for Craig, don't be shy. Please feel free to participate. Craig, and what about NFTs? Are you doing anything with that at the moment? And if yes, why? Or if not, why not? Or what are your views on that?
Well, as we all know, NFTs are one of the major buzzwords in sports right now, and companies are springing up everywhere. We have a company that we just invested in called Credenza. Anyone that's looking to do an NFT, I would advise to talk to them. The NFT market is lots of NFTs are being created, but the people buy them and then they look for a resale market. The resale market at NFTs is not really developed yet, so we're still in the early days of the NFT business, and the smart NFT companies are linking. So you buy an NFT from Juventus, and what you do then is you start building in a lot of blockchain enabled fan engagement opportunities. So access to hospitality areas that wouldn't normally be available to non-NFT owners, parking spaces, concession stand freebies, merchandise, being able to talk to a player from Juventus once in a while. So all of those type of things that bring the fan closer to the club are now being linked to the NFTs and making them a lot more interesting for the fan and for the club to offer.
Great. And Greg, so of this new sort of phase of Mindspring, what is it? You mentioned traveling, but so what is it that you love the most about what you're doing, your
Well,
work?
I get up every morning, Zhao, and I'm happy to get to my desk. I love the people I work with. The world of sport is just the most amazing place in my mind. I couldn't think of anything, and people come to me with other opportunities. If it doesn't have to do with sport, I'm sorry, I'm not interested. I know one thing, and that's all I know, and that's all I want to know. It's just an amazing place, and sport is good for humanity, isn't it? It's good for young people to get involved and be active, to watch their nutrition, to set goals, to deal with conflict. These are all things that make people better people and keep us fit and healthy. So I just think it's an amazing place to be, and I wouldn't trade that for anything.
And I imagine that also might have allowed you, if you're a sports fan, you probably have a few sports heroes. I don't know if you got the chance to meet any of them. I was wondering maybe what would be your favorite sporting moment for someone who loves sport. You can tell me maybe one as a fan and maybe one working at that.
Okay, well, I will come back to the 1999 Champions League final in Barcelona. Sorry, that's a long time ago. It was Bayern Munich versus Manchester United in that
Oh,
beautiful No Camp stadium, almost 100,000 people, obviously completely packed. The match was just amazing, and I have two quick stories here. One, I was up in the hospitality lounge with the president of UEFA, and it was 1-0. Bayern Munich was leading over Manchester United, and the clock was almost running out. And of course, the president of UEFA has to go down to the pitch to present the cup.
yeah.
So I was taking him down to the pitch, and in a little tiny elevator, he's a big guy. The two of us could barely fit in the elevator, way down to the tunnel, walk out the tunnel. And when we got into the tunnel, we hear the crowd erupt that obviously a goal had been scored. And it happened while we were in the tunnel. And the president was not happy. So he said, okay, well, we better go back up because they're going to go into overtime. Excuse me. But while we were in the lift going back up, again, in the extra time of the match, Manchester United scored again, 2-1. So we arrive in the hospitality room. Leonard Johansson walks out into the room, and everyone is celebrating. And he said, "Oh my God, don't tell me they scored again." And in fact, they had, and it was one of the most exciting matches that's ever, certainly one of the most exciting finals of all time. But he said to me, "Craig, don't ever come and get me again to go to the pitch until the match is completely over. I will never do that again." He was a lover of football, and to miss those two goals really killed him. It really did.
Yeah.
But that was the fan experience, the same match. So this was in Barcelona, and as the organizer of the match, we wanted to make it something really special. We decorated the stadium with artwork of Jean Miro. We really wanted to bring the culture of Barcelona into the match and make an opening ceremony and something special for the world, because just seeing this on television. So the only song that we could ever think of was called Barcelona. It was produced by, it was sung by Freddie Mercury and Montserrat Caballé, a famous Spanish opera singer, both of whom are now left us, unfortunately. At the time, Freddie Mercury had just passed away.
That was launched for the Olympic Games in Barcelona, wasn't it?
I think so. Yes.
Yeah.
And it's a fantastic song. If any of you have never heard Barcelona, please go on Spotify and listen to it. It's just a fantastic song. So we went to Montserrat Caballé, who was living there in Barcelona. We said, "We'd like you to sing this song in the opening ceremony." She said, I swore to myself I would never perform the song again, because Freddie was such a close friend, and his death just was terrible. And I just said that I will never do that live again. And so we said, please, this is for Barcelona, this is for the world. She just said, no, I'm not going to do it. We found a friend of hers, Jose Carrera, who
One of the three
another
tenors.
another big tenor who he was also luckily a big football fan, and we said, Jose, you got to talk to her. You got to get her to do this for us. So he went to her and said, talked her into it. She said, okay, I'm going to do it. It was like a miracle. So we had she was a very big woman. I mean, big. So she didn't really walk well. So we fixed up a golf cart and dressed it up with Champions League and built a little background, a little stage there for her on the back where she could stand and sing. And of course, this was live. But the magic here was that she had a tape of when they actually recorded the song of close-up of Freddie Mercury singing the song. So we brought that tape onto the giant screens in the stadium. And when she was rolled out, this is like just before the match, the stadium is like crazy with noise. All the spectators are yelling and screaming, and it's almost impossible to quiet them down to listen to a song. But when she rolled out and this first strains of this music were played and they saw Freddie Mercury on the screen and she started singing Barcelona, I mean, it still gives me goosebumps today. The entire stadium went quiet. It was one of the most beautiful moments of my life, almost, I would say, reverential, for a city and the culture and the team and everything that Barcelona stands for. It just came to life, and it was a miracle.
Well, I'm going to go look for that footage right after this. Thank you, Craig. Listen, there's a question here from Miguel Macedo. Technology and fan engagement versus fan emotions. How does this will be worked in the future by sports marketing?
Well, they go together, don't they? Fans are taking videos of themselves at a game, and they're sharing that with all their social media network. That question is really what all this thing is all about. People in the business of sports marketing forget all the money for sports comes from one place, the fans. If the fans don't buy tickets, if the fans don't watch television, the television can't sell advertising to the sponsors. They don't make any money. The sponsors' products, if they're not bought by the fans, they're not putting money in. Everything comes from the fan. And we forget that, the fan is everything. And we have to keep it affordable for the fan, and we have to keep it fun. And we have to make sure that the stadium experience is fantastic, because television gets better and better and better all the time. But just that one example, the fan being excited, taking a video of himself and sharing it with his social network. And then the club picks that up and they put it on their social network. The television picks it up. They put it on screen. That's fan emotion is what drives this thing. And, you compare it to music, music is also a tremendously exciting, fun thing to do, but it's not the same as sports, because in music, there's no uncertainty. You already know the song. In sports, you never know what's going to happen. You don't know if one team's going to collapse, the other team's going to rise to new heights. It's that uncertainty, that drama, like an opera, that, you just don't know what's going to happen in the outcome. And that's what keeps people riveted to it.
Did you imagine that when you were, I suppose you did, but when you're looking for that song of the Champions League, when you decided to create that, the impact that would have, it's amazing, isn't it?
We made a really critical decision when we started the Champions League, which was, this is the best of the best of world football. I mean, the best teams in Europe are generally the best teams in the world. And if we're bringing them all together on the same stage, this is what we would call the higher image of football. And at the time, there was a lot of hooliganism and fighting, and women weren't coming to the matches because of that. There's no restrooms for women in a lot of the stadiums. I mean, it's incredible to think only in 1992 how different it was. But we said this is the higher image of football. It's got to be classical music, not the typical rock music that everybody would have played. And yeah. we hired a composer. He did an amazing job, and the result is that it's one of the most popular musics in the world of sports. And Now people are getting married. I find it hard to believe, but I have videos of people playing the music when they're walking down the aisle, and the man is going, yes, yes.
Definitely.
So it's been quite a phenomenon.
Great. Craig, a few comments and questions coming here. I do have some of my own, but I'll give preference to them. So just so you know, Jesus here said that I actually asked you what he was going to ask, as he's a Manchester United fan. That was a magnificent final for him.
I
Melissa
hope so.
Diaz asked you a very interesting question here. Talking about the event, what do you say to your team before an important event starts? Do you have any traditions? Is there a pep talk like the coaches give to the players? How do you prepare for a Champions League final? We see the cameras in, the coaches preparing the players, but what do you do?
No, I like that question a lot. Thank you. Running an event is a team of people, and a team of people is a team, and a team has to be motivated and inspired, and they have to be given a lot of positive feedback and make sure they're also on the right course. Okay, so that was my job. I was the team leader, and it's a role that I love. In the final in Barcelona, for example, like 2 days before the match, we took the afternoon off. We all went to the beach, and we had a ginormous paella, chef come in and produce a big paella dish, which with local wine and beer, we actually played beach volleyball on the beach there. I'm a beach volleyball player. That was my background. We played beach volleyball to get some exercise, to relax and have some fun. And we had a giant paella and a big swimming party afterwards. And that was a way of thanks for all the hard work, because preparing a final, you start a year ahead of time, even though you don't even know where it is yet. But it's an amazing amount of work. And then as you get closer and closer, you're on site and you're not with your family, and just to have a chance to relax and enjoy your colleagues, really important. But then, yes, there's a pre-match talk, and that's about, partly it's about the idiosyncrasies of that stadium, of the crowd, of the safety and security issues, of the TV production, the sponsor needs and the sponsor hospitality area. We're going through kind of a last minute checklist, but it's also motivational. It's, guys, why did you want this job? Why are you doing that? This, and you know what? This is the answer. You're going to be on the biggest stage of club football in the next couple hours, and this is what we've been working for. Let's make it the best match of all time. And we have a role to play in that. We're not on the pitch. We're not coaching. We're not, but everything around that, the TV production, we set it up, the hospitality room, the pitch itself, safety and security, the pageantry, the music, the video screens, all of that stuff is what we do behind the scenes. That makes it a really great fan experience. So it's an amazing thing to be part of. And I'll tell you, people call me. I have this network of all the people I worked with at team, and to this day, once a month, and I'm not exaggerating, someone comes back to me and says, Craig, that was the best experience of my life. I haven't worked there for 20 years, but that was the best experience of my life, and I don't think anything will ever be. And I say that myself as well. That was the best experience of my life.
Great. Thank you, Craig. We're getting to the end of the interview. There's just a couple more here. There's one arriving. Actually, Jack, I think he got here a bit late because he's asking more or less exactly what I asked before. What was your toughest challenge that you faced and how you overcame it? So Jack, I will actually rephrase that a little.
Well,
yeah, go on.
Well,
Sorry.
let me answer that quickly. I was in Athens. It was the Olympic Stadium, which has a running track around the pitch. Rosenborg was playing Olympiacos in a Champions League match. About 3 hours before the match, we got a report that there was a disturbance at the gate, at one of the gates. And in Athens at that time, there was a lot of fan clubs that were causing a lot of problems. And the police were getting criticized. Excuse me. And there was a group of police in another precinct of Athens that decided they were fed up with this criticism they were getting. They were going to come to our match, march around the stadium, and protest with signs the treatment of the police.
Oh.
You can't imagine this kind of stuff. Okay, I'm sorry. So they forced their way into the stadium 3 hours. They put 2 of the security guards that tried to keep them out. They beat them up. They had to go to the hospital. These were police with their weapons and their billy clubs, and these 2 spectator security guards had to go to the hospital. They come in. There's 150 black uniformed police with their weapons. They come in and they start marching around the track before the match. They had a television camera company from London, ITN, I'll never forget it, that they hired to cover this so they could put the coverage all over the world of the bad treatment the police were getting. So we've got a match starting. The warm-up was going on. They're marching around the pitch. So I had to go quickly to the television truck and say, look, you don't cover any of this march. None. It was Mega Channel in Greece. You only cover the pitch, very close in on the pitch. We don't want to see one policeman walking around this pitch. Agreed? Agreed. Then I went running back out to the pitch to see what we were. It was at the point now they're still marching around. The players had gone back into the dressing room. They were just coming out the tunnel for the match. And all the police stopped right in front of the tunnel so the players couldn't get out. So then what happened? All the other Greek police that were in charge of that match, they came down on the pitch and started like a face-off. So we had one group against another group. And I was standing in the middle with the owner of Olympiacos. And he said, Craig, what should we do? I said, Jesus, this is not a spot that I've ever imagined being in.
Right.
And the guy from UEFA that was supposed to be there with me was sick on this match. So normally I wouldn't be in this situation. But I was the next one in charge because he didn't show up. And I said, look, we have no choice. I mean, he said, if they don't march, there's going to be a fight between these 2 groups of police. And for me, that was going to be like World War III. They all have their guns. Yeah. I okay, look, we have no choice. We have to let them march. So the amazing part of this story, two things happened. So the police that were trying to stop them backed down. They were not happy at all, but they backed down. They went back to their positions. The police that were marching, they started marching. But it's so funny. When the game started, they all love football, don't they? They love football.
So they stopped and watched.
They started sitting down on the track watching the match. It was like, can you believe it? So I felt, I had a moment of freedom there. I went quickly and got that cameraman that was recording all this because we weren't showing any of it. And I knew that if I could get that tape, that the public would never see this and it would basically never have happened. So I asked Olympiacos for a couple of their bodyguards, and they have these big guys like American football players, built like refrigerators, and they came with me, and we went to get this cameraman. And I just had them as backup, and I said, we saw what you were doing, we'd really like to have your tape. And he said, no, you can't ask me for that. It's illegal. You can't ask me for that. And I had to have that tape. I mean, I was protecting UEFA at this point, okay? And football in general. We don't want to have this around football. And so I said, okay, well, look, these guys here want to take you outside the stadium and talk to you a bit. And, obviously a veiled threat. And he looked at those 2 guys and he opened his camera and gave me the tape. So I had the tape. It never happened. That's what happens in the world of sport. Okay. Amazing stuff.
Amazing stuff indeed. And I actually need to thank Jack for the question. That's why I always give preference to our viewers, Craig. I think they do ask better questions than me. Listen, we're finishing up. If I can have maybe a last question, if that would be all right with you, and maybe I'll
Yeah.
yeah.
One more, and then I'm going to have to go.
Okay. Well, one maybe you can think of if you want to recommend a book to the audience. Think about that, and we'll get back to that in a second. But maybe we talked a lot of your successes and everything that went right in your career. I was wondering if there was one, I don't know, sometimes I call it a favorite failure or something that didn't really go as you wanted, but ended up being a valuable lesson for you. Is there anything that you think you took it? Yeah, it didn't work out, but I learned a lot from it. And
Well,
what is it?
okay. One quick one is when after we had started the Champions League and we were like 3 or 4 years in, I'm an American, so I came to the group, our management team, with an idea to have an all-star game with the best players from the different Champions League teams
Right.
in an annual all-star game. And I just thought this was the greatest idea that had ever been thought of, even though
Yeah.
it's what we do in America. So it wasn't anything creative on my side. It was just bringing an American idea, which works really well in America, and saying, we need to do that. And all my colleagues just looked at me and said, Craig, that'll never work. We don't do that here. We don't have all-star games. If the fans don't come to a match that means something, they don't go just for entertainment. They go because it means something to them. And that was a really important lesson for me to learn, that by recommending that. And that's the difference also between American and Europe and the rest of the world sports, is that in America, yes, fans care. They really want their team to win, but it's just about as much about entertainment, the tailgate party and drinking beer before the match and the halftime show. It's just as much about that as it is the match. So Europe's a special place, and I prefer that type of approach to sports myself.
That's great. Thank you, Craig. Do you have any book that you'd like to recommend, or a podcast, or something that you want to tell our viewers to check out?
This is totally crazy. The book I would recommend to anyone that's interested in figuring out their career and their path in life it's called Zen and the Art of Motorcycle Maintenance by Robert Pirsig.
All right.
It was written in the 70s or even the 60s, but it's a philosophy book. Book's about quality. What does a quality life look like? It changed my life. So that may be a strange recommendation, but there you go.
No, that's great. Listen, so we're wrapping up. I'll just bring this one from Jesus because it sums up what I wanted to say as well. Thank you very much for being one of the people who helped to create one of the best tournaments in the world, if not the best, and unite Europe and the world through football. So you played an important part in it. It was a pleasure having you on the show. Thank you so much, and I hope that we'll get to meet each other in person sometime soon.
Every one of you that has a chance to work in sports, if you love sports, you'll never find a better job. Thank you, everyone. Thank you, Zhao.
Great. Just stay there for another 5 seconds until we finish. Bye-bye, everyone. See you next week.